Functional Solutions is pleased to bring you this short video on alternative dispute resolution. My partner's name is Dion Eddy and my name is Mike Baines. We assist parties that are in conflict to find mutually agreeable solutions for their situations. You know, all conflict gets resolved eventually. The results of the resolution range from evaporation to time in prison. Humans have this built-in response. It's called the flight or fight response. With primitive man, it determined whether you ate or were eaten. Today, people have choices in dealing with their conflicts, from avoidance to litigation adjudication. Unfortunately, many people seem to be content to be quietly eaten. In negotiation and mediation, parties have the most control over process and outcome. In litigation, parties have the least control over process and outcome. We encourage everyone to try to solve their negative conflict on the left side of the vertical red line where they have the most control. Well, what kind of conflicts are we talking about? We have been given permission to share with you clips from a video that USDA made for their employees to illustrate conflict and how mediation might work.
Look, I need another run on this sample before you leave today.
It's just not.
You couldn't cover for me for 10 minutes? My husband's out of town. I couldn't get anybody to take Jamie to daycare.
5 lates in 2 weeks. Sorry. I have to be here in time. Everybody has to be here in time. The boss is waiting.
Nope, she's still not giving me the outstanding. Because if she did, she'd have to consider me for the supervisor slot. What am I planning on doing about it? Well, I guess I could let it slide again. Or I could tell it to a judge or a hearing officer and hope they see it my way. You don't even want to know what I'd like to do about it. I know. Look, I gotta get back to work. I'll talk to you when I get home, okay? Bye.
There's got to be a better way.
All three of these scenarios depict employees in conflict. They indicate that there must be a better way than just going it alone. So let's see how Fred tackles his conflict.
We can't keep going around about this forever. The way I read the criteria, your work is fully successful, not outstanding. It's time for us to move on.
I don't think it's about performance criteria, Wanda. I think it's about finding a reason to keep a guy like me from moving up too far.
I beg your pardon?
Those so-called objective criteria are nothing but a joke. Like a lot of things around here.
If you seriously believe that, shouldn't you think about going someplace else?
This is just what I need today. I've got to report to you by 4, and Wanda and Fred are going at it again.
I'm late for a meeting. Do what you've got to do.
Take it easy. Take it easy. Are you all right?
No, I'm not. I'm getting royally shafted by you-know-who, and I've had it up to here.
Come on, buddy. I still got to live here, you know?
I'm knocking myself out going nowhere fast, and when I look at my options, I don't like what I see.
Aw, come on, Fred. I don't know.
Considering the video clip you just watched, how would you rate this office's efficiency? How many Freds could Wanda manage out of the 20 inspectors that work for her? Fred's good at his job. If he leaves, what will it take to bring on and train up new employees to Fred's level of competence? How many Charlies might there be in real-life conflicts? Well, you know, we automatically realize that conflict isn't good for an organization. One way to measure it is to look at the financial burden that it brings. Through his extensive research in workplace conflict, Dr. Daniel Dana provides us with a tool to estimate the cost of conflict in his book, Managing Differences. Dr. Dana is a pioneer in the field of mediation. Unmanaged employee conflict is perhaps the largest reducible cost in organizations today and probably the least recognized. It's estimated that over 65% of the performance problems result from strained relationships between employees, not from deficits in individual employees' skill or motivation. Independent workplace relationships are environments from which conflict readily grows and flourishes. Organizations, careers, marriages, and lives prosper or fail, depending on how successful conflict is dealt with. Here are the factors that Dr. Dana gives us to help get a handle on the cost of conflict: wasted time, reduced decision quality, loss of skilled employees, restructuring, sabotage, theft, damage, lowered job motivation, lost work time, health cost. So let's apply them one at a time to our Fred and Wanda case, and we're going to move very fast, so you may want to turn to your cost estimate worksheet in your handout. It would not be unusual for a conflict like Fred and Wanda's to have been going on for 6 months. We're estimating that Wanda spends an average of 3 hours a week, Fred 5 hours a week, and any Charlies involved spend an average of 2 hours a week or more. Wanda's cost comes to $3,000, Fred's cost to $3,333, and Charlie's cost is $1,333. It gives us a total of $7,660 for this one conflict in regards to wasted time. Factor 2 is reduced decision quality. Decisions made under conditions of conflict are always inferior to decisions made when cooperation prevails. If information is withheld or distorted by those who are depended upon to provide it, then the decision cannot be the best one possible. Also, if conflict is present between people who share decision-making authority, as in the case of team-based decisions, the resulting decisions are likely to be contaminated by the power struggles between those people. A precise estimate of cost is probably impossible, but ask yourself, what opportunities were lost by poor decisions that were affected by this conflict, and what might have been gained if a better decision had been made? In the interest of time, the fact that realistic figure could range from very low to exceedingly high depending upon the decision, we're not going to put a dollar value there. We'll just say the cost could run from high to low and leave it at that for this example. Factor 3 is loss of skilled employees. Organizations invest in employee skills by paying premium salary upon hiring and by providing training thereafter. Exit interviews, which figure out reasons for terminations, reveal that chronic unresolved conflict is a decisive factor in one leaving a job in at least 50% of all voluntary departures. Chronic unresolved conflict accounts for up to 90% of all involuntary departures, with the probable exception of staff reductions due to downsizing and restructuring. Raytheon Corporation determined that replacing an engineer cost 150% of his or her total annual compensation. Now, they figured in such things as lost productivity, recruiting fees, interviewing time, staffing department employees' salaries, orientation, and retraining costs, things like that. So if Fred chooses to leave, the cost of replacing him would be $40,000 times 150%, or $60,000. Since it would be voluntary, use half of that figure, or $30,000, that could be attributed to conflict. Factor 4, restructuring. Often in an attempt to manage conflict in the workplace, the workflow is altered to reduce the amount of interaction required between employees in conflict. Restructuring doesn't allow work to flow as well as it did prior to the conflict. As with the decision quality factor, it's impossible to precisely calculate the resulting inefficiency. Dr. Dana gives us a conservative guideline, which is 10% of the combined salaries of the employees whose relationship was restructured for the time the restructure is in effect. We're just going to put high to low for this factor. Factor 5, sabotage, theft, damage. Studies reveal a direct correlation between prevalence of employee conflict and amount of damage and theft of inventory and equipment. And covert sabotage of work processes and of management's efforts usually occur when employees are angry at their employer. Much of the cost incurred by this factor is excused as accidental or inadvertent errors. The cost is almost certainly greater than you may realize. A conservative guide is 10% of the acquisition cost of the equipment, tools, and supplies that conflicted employees use in performing their jobs. We're just speculating in this example, so again, we'll use low to high. This ends the first half of this video. Please locate part 2 and view the second half.